Good morning. It is Monday, December the 4th, 2023, and this is the Monday Morning Report. My name is Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and it's been an interesting week, hasn't it? First off, Henry Kissinger's dead. Derek Chauvin almost dead. Now, let's go into Henry first. The 100-year-old former Secretary of State, and arguably one of the more Machiavellian strategists, I'm trying to be very diplomatic here, has passed away. He's an interesting character, and I actually got to meet the man once at an airport lounge in Japan. I didn't walk up to him and ask him anything special. I knew that would probably get me into some trouble if you walk up to the guy and start criticizing him or something. So I just walked up and said, Dr. Kissinger, been a fan. I'm curious. You travel a lot. Which airlines do you think have the best mileage point systems? And then I engaged in about a 10-minute conversation with the man. All that said and done, his advice was good, by the way, in that department. Kissinger's probably one of the more significant, influential characters of the latter half of the 20th century in the United States, well into the 21st. And he was doing deals right up until the end. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to come out about this guy, books, intimate details on how he did things. It's going to get interesting. So he's a character to watch because even though he's been in the background, his influence was very much in the foreground. Now, Mr. Derek Chauvin, who was convicted of murdering Mr. George Floyd, was attacked in prison. He was stabbed. The reports are he was stabbed more than 20 times. I've heard different numbers, but it's definitely more than 20 times. And it's quite interesting that he was attacked by a man who was a known FBI informant. There's a lot about the George Floyd case that has been coming out that calls into question how he really died. I'm not going to go into all that here. It is worth looking into. But the U.S. government doesn't really need to use the death penalty very much, given how its prison system does work. If somebody wants to be done in, they get done in prison. Whitey Bulger, who I would urge you to recommend checking into. He died not too long after entering general population at a prison. He was a notorious Irish gangster. There's a lot there as well, but I would look into how this case is going to be re-examined of Mr. Chauvin and all of his police colleagues and what really killed Mr. Floyd. That's going to get interesting. Now, Israel, of course, is continuing to bomb Gaza into rubble, and you notice how it's not in the headlines as much as it used to be. It is in the Middle East. I mean, it's the dead baby report every day, constantly. Al Jazeera is still covering this rather extensively. But you notice how American attention spans are, as I predicted, not very long. So after Thanksgiving, you'll see it pretty much dropping off the radar, at least in terms of what's actually going on there. There's talk, of course, they had a ceasefire, which is now back on. Israel's now bombing again, supposedly bombing even more than it used to. It's something that they just want to see move to the background as, oh yeah, that's still going on, just like the Ukrainian war. Early on, it's all the news. Now it's still going on, but you don't even hear much about it. And that's part of their strategy. Now, I still don't think the major powers in that part of the world are going to want to get in on this. If they had, they would have done so a long time ago, but there's a chance the U.S. could. U.S. ship has been reported shooting down drones in the Red Sea that are coming in from other countries to attack Israel. So there's a lot of random things that could still happen in that particular conflict. This is the thing about wars. The author Tom Clancy, who was famous for The Hunt for Red October and other novels, He once said something in an interview that wars are always started by scared old men. And that doesn't necessarily mean politicians. It could also be done by scared old men on the front lines or scared young men on the front lines. Somebody pressing a button they shouldn't. Somebody shooting a gun at somebody when they shouldn't. So whenever there's a situation like this, it's not a foregone conclusion. It's going to end in the way you think it will, or it's even going to escalate or not escalate. So just follow these things. This is important. Again, I would recommend not following them in the mainstream media. They do not cover the news anymore, I'm sad to say. Now, you're going to be seeing more and more about the Green New Deal. I would like you to pay attention to the works of a man named Dr. Patrick Moore. Patrick, last name Moore, M-O-O-R-E. He was co-founder of something called Greenpeace, which you don't hear much about anymore, but they're still out there. He was the co-founder of that way back when. And he is very vocally against the global warming scares. He's also very much against the Green New Deal, and I've been seeing some of his interviews lately. He's more and more vocal, and this is not some, silly guy who just has an opinion. He's rather informed, and I would recommend checking out Dr. Patrick Moore on various media outlets, online media outlets, of course, and see what he has to say on these topics and listen to his arguments. They're quite interesting and quite persuasive. I myself used to be a big, strong believer that there's a serious problem. I'm not so sure anymore. But like all good news people, I'm always open to being wrong, or something I'm being told is being wrong. He's somebody, though, that I would definitely pay attention to. He's an older gentleman, but he does know his stuff. As for anything else going on in the world right now, Gonzalo Lira is still something that needs to be talked about. The United States is getting more and more anti-free speech at an institutional level. There's a couple of reports. I'll be doing them probably as a special report over the next few days, where people who, just by meeting controversial characters, are being attacked as somehow endorsing them. Now, this goes totally counter to anyone from my generation who used to be involved in political strategy, and I was. In the late 80s and early 90s, I did work as a lobbyist. And at that time, we did have the belief that all Americans had the right to be heard and their opinions considered, no matter how crazy or how reprehensible, so long as they weren't out calling for people's murders or death or something bad to happen, like a bombing. If somebody had an opinion, it was wrong to try to stifle that opinion. If it was a bad opinion, it would usually just die by itself in the sun. And this is a much more disturbing trend than more people are seeing, because if you're not able to even talk to somebody who's controversial or not liked by the powers that be, you really don't live in a country worth living in. And this is something you're going to see more and more, I think, of as the election year progresses. 2024 is only less than a month away, and that's going to be a monumental year, I predict, in this country's history, especially with what's going to happen in the election, which will be worthy of a much more in-depth report at another time. Lots of stuff to watch, and it's important to keep your thumb on some of these things, because they can sometimes reach out and affect you in ways that you never thought. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you like what you hear, you like what you read, please consider subscribing, and a paid subscription if you can do it. Donations are welcome. It frees up my time to do more of this, which I would really like to do in 2024, people. I really would. So if you like this, send the link to your friends and say, hey, check this out. You might find it interesting. That being said, have a good week. Be safe. Be vigilant. Be good. And good day.